When the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show, the best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go. It's the best soccer show. Jason Davis. And who's this? Mitch Clark.
Mitch.
Are you going to say your own name, Mitch? Go ahead. I stepped on
I
you.
was going to jump in. Yes, Mitch Clark here, joining Jason Davis. That's a longer intro than you realize when you're like waiting for you to jump in.
Well, yeah, I've been through it 1,000 or so times. Probably more than that. Wow, I do not know. All right, this is a new era for the Best Soccer Show. For anybody who is just joining us, anybody who missed last week's episode, I guess if it was like a sitcom and we had a story arc that we needed to review, last time on the Best Soccer Show, I announced that Jared Dubois needed to step back from this program for very good reasons and reasons I am not mad about at all. I'm not angry. I'm not upset at him at all. He just walked away from the show after 15 years. No, everything's cool. Jared needed to do what Jared needed to do, which meant I was left with a conundrum. Shut down the Best Soccer Show the year a World Cup is happening in America. No, I couldn't do that. Or continue on, soldier forth, and find somebody or somebodies, perhaps, to help us on the show and to keep the Best Soccer Show going. So Mitch Clark stepped up. You may have seen Mitch around the internet as FC Neo Tokyo. That is the handle he uses everywhere, he's told me. I've certainly run into him.
Unfortunately.
Well, if that's who you are on the internet, Mitch, then, stick with it. Be consistent, I guess, is the way to look at it there. So Mitch and I are going to do the Best Soccer Show for a while. And I'm also going to bring in another guest host a little bit later. So we're going to kind of do, this is by committee, for lack of a better way of describing it. Mitch has stepped up and asked if he could step in. And I've also got Thomas Pinzone, who you may know from the Blazing Musket, doing the podcast up there in New England. He's going to join us later on the show. So we've got a couple of MLS guys, which I think is interesting because if you've been paying attention for the last couple of years, we've drifted away from MLS this show. This show became very national team focused. And I think that was a function of a couple things. One, the national team got really interesting and really weird. And we went through a whole thing with Berhalter and Giovanni Reina and all of that. And then Jared himself also drifted away from Major League Soccer because this is what we were talking about, Mitch. Major League Soccer is pretty big. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, right?
Too much, some say. Too much, some say. I mean, I digest it the right way with the sound off on a small screen in front of me while I'm also playing video games and watching 360. No, I tend to go back a lot and watch 360 just because I'm a weirdo, but I also go to games too. So it's tough to get everything all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, if you are a person who attends games on the regular, as Mitch does, you're a Chicago Fire season ticket holder, which means you've been through some shit, Mitch. Like, I respect it. Like,
there's a story behind that. So, long story short, USL 2 side Peoria City here. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, and I moved to the Chicagoland area in 2010, and we had just gotten done being really good. And I was like, you know what? I'll let them rebuild and I'll buy season tickets. And seriously, I waited until 2023. I just finally broke down and was like, I can get to the stadium in 15 minutes. I've got to get tickets finally. So that's what happened. And now
wait, hold on. The bad Chicago Fire wore you down? Like, just kind of, you just couldn't hold out. The bad Chicago Fire did? Oh,
well, to be fair, life, if you ever saw Old School, Will Ferrell's kind of life. I got divorced. I met a new person. We moved in together. I am in the city finally. So like, it just was really easy.
All right. You wanted to live the young urbanite. So, that's what you wanted. You wanted the whole vibe. You wanted all the things that go with it. You wanted to take public transportation to the games. You wanted all that stuff. I respect it. I got no issue with that. That's great. Obviously, look, the Fire are rebuilding right now. That's happening. Did not start out the first day of the season. Well, we'll get to that. Before we talk MLS, though, and again with Mitch and then Thomas Pinzone later, we're going to talk MLS, which I'm excited about because I'm also recommitted to Major League Soccer in 2026. I think a lot of this, and you can see this reflected in the numbers, and maybe I should save this, but you can see that Major League Soccer is going to be in front of a lot more eyeballs by virtue of being just part of Apple TV rather than being behind that MLS season pass paywall, which wasn't double. You could just get MLS season pass. You didn't have to get Apple TV to watch MLS. But who's going like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get MLS season pass just for itself. Only the hardcore people, many of whom are like Mitch, who have season tickets and can't watch a lot of those games anyway.
Well,
So
between
MLS
season tickets and T-Mobile, man.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
hooked it up.
They hooked it up too. Like season ticket holders were getting MLS season pass for free. T-Mobile subscribers getting MLS season pass for free. So anyway, it's interesting to see how those numbers have gone up week one, just 1 week with MLS now just regular part of Apple TV, which also allows me to catch up on some Apple shows I hadn't been watching. So my wife and this is how I sold it to my wife, Mitch, like, oh, we can watch the next season of Silo, which we haven't seen yet. We can watch the next season of what I've been watching Foundation because I'm a sci-fi nerd and read all the books. So, I can.
Oh no, you've just introduced me to something. Foundation, then. Okay.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not going to tell you that it's good. I'm not going to pretend that it's good. No, if we want to cross over and do a little slop culture here for a second, old school, I think that it is a little. I honestly can't remember the books well enough to know how faithful they are to the storylines of the books, which I'm not always the guy who cares that much about that part. But it's not connecting for me. I'll just say that. They're not. It's not.
Okay.
The show is not connecting with me the way the books did. Of course, I read the books when I was 12, so there you go. All right, so
that could be a thing. That could be a thing.
I mean, you remember things more fondly when you read them at that age, right? So yeah, Nate in the chat is saying that the storyline in the show has nothing to do with the books, which is definitely my sense, which is probably throwing me off. So even though I don't need you to be 100% faithful to the books, I do need you to at least kind of follow the books a little bit. Like, don't completely sell out this storyline, and that seems to be the case. All right. So before we get to more MLS, because Mitch is here, we will talk about a little national team stuff. Now, look, we are a couple of weeks away from a roster ahead of some friendlies for the U.S. men's national team, and these start to get very important. We start to get into that place, Mitch, of like who we are going to find out who Mauricio Pochettino likes. Right? We're going to find out if he likes certain guys based on the roster coming out in March.
I tried to balance it because I wonder. Part of me really thinks he has no idea what he's doing. Like, I really feel like, I definitely don't think he knew what he signed up for the job, right? But beyond that kind of stuff, I'm trying to ask myself, am I just a hater or am I just old and I think Max Arston isn't any good? Or should I open my eyes is the question. And Pochettino, to me, it just feels like he's throwing stuff against the wall. I can't see the vision personally.
Yeah, well, look, I think there have been some signs. Like the late last year, we actually saw some progress, right? There were some performances that at least give you the sense that something could be coming together. He did shift to a 3-man back line, which seemed to better suit some of the personnel he had. And you mentioned Arvston, right? Arvston's a guy who benefits from being in a 3-back system because he's a wingback. He is not a fullback. So if you get him into that situation, he could potentially thrive. Now, you do wonder about the utility of that formation and that approach against certain teams at the World Cup, but at least there was progress, right? Like, at least there was something. Now, again, though, I don't know that we have a sense that he's 100% locked in on his player pool. And Mitch, I think also, though, he's an Argentinian guy, right? And it's Argentino. He doesn't think of this as this is the group, and it's the group I carry with me multiple windows, and we're going to use this group of the World Cup, and we're going to pick this team, and he is going to go, who are the guys right now that feel like the right group to me? So it almost doesn't matter what you did in October of 2025 when it comes to him picking the World Cup roster. Like, it almost doesn't. I think that's my sense because he's kind of more just about the
You're
moment.
not wrong. You're not wrong. It's a lot of different stuff. But if I were to ask you something, if you were Maurice, like, I guess we all know Christian Pulisic is number one, but who is like the most important guy in this roster to you personally? Because
Wow.
I kind of have a cop-out answer.
Well, I think, look, for a team that, man, it's a good question. Like, I think that we know that the U.S. men's national team traditionally is not going to dictate terms against the top tier of national teams. And at the World Cup, you're going to get to a position where you need to do that, or you're going to face that problem, right? Not being able to dictate terms. Like against Australia, you should be able to dictate terms. You're going to have the ball. You're going to set the pace of play. It's going to be up to you to figure out how to beat Australia. They're the puzzle that you're trying to solve. When you are playing Germany, Spain, England, Argentina, more than likely you're going to have to be the puzzle, right? You can't be the you're not you're not doing their puzzle, they're doing yours. And in that case, it leads me to players like Tyler Adams, Chris Richards, guys in the middle of defense, basically, the guys who are responsible for keeping goals out of the net. I know that sounds boring because everybody wants to go score goals, but ultimately you're not gonna advance in the World Cup because Christian Pulisic. Well, you might because he scores an opportunistic goal or two, like he did in 2022, but it's not going to be based on your attack when you advance if you're the U.S. men's national team. It's going to be about your ability to keep goals out.
That's a funny theory because thinking about this team, it's the defense is so not well. The center of defense, what we'll call the true defense, because we'll get to what I was about to say about my number one players here. But it's like our weakest spot. So it's almost like, do you try and do what Miami did last year and just outscore you 5-4? Right? Is that the way? But I mean,
well, no, but the difference between that, obviously, the difference between the United States men's national team and Miami is that they have Lionel Messi, and you don't. Fair. Like even though Christian Pulisic is a very, 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 very good player, he still needs certain things around him to make it work. He's not going to individually take over a game and dominate. I don't think he's capable. I think sometimes he wants to do that, and it actually hurts the team. Now, it's interesting. So Weston McKennie is part of the reason we're talking about this, because Weston McKennie has been immense for Juve, especially since Spalletti took over at Juve, and proven that he belongs there. There are reports that he's on the verge of signing a new contract to stay at Juventus for at least a couple more years. And honestly, he deserves that. And he deserves a pay raise and all the things. There are some questions about whether or not he might be actually in a place to make more money or be more quote unquote comfortable in a different destination, including one very close to where Mitch is sitting right now. But he has been very good. And my joke, it's kind of, there's a little bit of gallows humor about it, because what's fascinating about Weston is he's clearly a very good player, but he is a step below elite because elite players have a position. Elite players are players that coaches go, that guy is in that spot every time I play a meaningful game. That's what an elite player is, right? Especially at a place like Juventus. And Weston McKennie is not that. He is, well, what do I need today? Oh, I need a right wing back, Weston McKennie. Oh, I need a center forward, Weston McKennie. I don't have one of those right now. I need a 10, Weston McKennie. I need a deep lying midfielder, Weston McKennie. Like, he has played 11, 12 positions for Juventus over the past couple of seasons. And that's incredible that he is adaptable. It is incredible that he has proven himself again and again and again to manager after manager after manager, and that Juve want to sign him to a new contract, recognizing how important he is. But it also means he's not the pace setter. He's not the guy. Weston McKennie is a supplementary player to the guys around him. Weston McKennie does not dictate the game on his own. He is an incredible support player. He can do a lot of things very, very well, but he kind of needs other players to do stuff for him, to set him up or to get him involved, or he can move around the field. He can play left back and then drop into the box to be a center forward and score a goal, but he's not the one grabbing the game. And I think when you're asking about who the most important player is, it's somebody who can grab the game and make the game happen, because that's what Lionel Messi does, right? That's what the great, when you think about the teams that are going to be contenders at this World Cup, you think about teams that have players that can do that, maybe multiple players who can do that.
I will say this. I think you have extremely valid point. For 99% of players out there, I think Weston McKennie actually falls into a very weird bucket, which please don't get me wrong when I say this. He's like what I would say Beckenbauer, Showery Joseph. His skill is multiple positions. There are people like DeMarcus Beasley who had to play a second position to elongate their career. Weston McKennie is this weird bird that he is multiple positions, right? And even in today's game, like even just I got to think back from like, I don't know, 2010 World Cup, like everybody was running a 4-4-2. Now everything is kind of cycled all the way back to what the 70s of total football. You know, like when you have you have fullbacks playing like wingers on everything else. I really like I like everything about Weston McKennie's game. He can get on top of the ball with his head. He can step on the ball, he can run with the ball. And when you say he's a facilitator, you are correct. He is the bridesmaid, but he's like it was the best wedding everybody went to because the bridesmaid was the best bridesmaid ever. Let's put it I don't know.
Yeah, no, I got you. And look, again, none of this is meant to diminish Weston McKennie. And this is why it's so interesting to consider where he might fit into this national team setup, because we don't have, I mean, there's no way of knowing, because Mauricio Pochettino does not publish his thoughts on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. This is what I think of this player. This is what I think of this other player. This is how he will fit into my team. Like, he doesn't do those things. So we have to guess at this, right? It's a vacuum that we are filling with our perceptions of what might be happening. And because Pochettino is Pochettino, he doesn't give us enough, and we don't know enough about what he thinks about Weston McKennie to understand what Weston's role might be at this World Cup.
Is there a world where Weston McKennie isn't a starter? Like, I get that. Okay. So hold on. I said that out loud, and then my brain started moving. I get Tillman. Tillman's going to start in the center. That like
you say that now based on what, Mitch? Previous evidence that I don't know that we're necessarily carrying forward. Right now, Malik Tillman is injured and didn't play in the Champions League this week, but I think. Or last week, obviously Bundesliga is a factor too. I like Malik Tillman. Did Malik Tillman level up at the end of last year and suddenly become a guy, or at the Gold Cup last year and suddenly become a guy that you can trust to basically be what we thought Gio was going to be? Maybe. But if you ask me like where I am percentage-wise on that, it's like 65-45 or 65-35. My math was bad. 65-35. I'm not 100% on Malik Tillman being some guy that I got to get in my lineup every single week or every single match.
Well, I feel like his ability on the ball is making him that the only real option. There isn't a Gio. There isn't anybody creative like that, right? Because who else are we talking about? We're talking about McKennie, and we're talking about Adams.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about, and Adams gets, deservedly so, a lot of credit for being a destroyer, a lot of credit for being the last line of defense. I think Weston McKennie's defense is better than people give it credit for. I think
it is, but it has to be deployed strategically, right? Again, like this thing about like, okay, he was, this again, not a criticism or diminishment. He was culpable on the final goal that Galatasaray scored yesterday. He was gassed. They were down to 10 men. They played basically what it was at 30 plus 45. They played 75 minutes of 10-man soccer, essentially, in that match against Galatasaray, and they were cooked. And so I don't blame him, but he is a player that can be caught out of position, because in part what you want to do is make sure that Weston McKennie has the freedom to move around, because like you said, he's so valuable in a number of positions. And
it's like having a guy play Red Bull soccer when the team itself doesn't necessarily play Red Bull soccer.
There's something to look again, like the idea like, oh, he's a wing back, and then you look up and like he's essentially playing as a second forward next to Jonathan David or whatever. Like, it's like, oh, okay. All right. So Weston McKennie, look, again, it looks like he might stay at U of A. I think he should be a starter for the U.S. men's national team, but I also understand why there might be some concern about how you actually deploy him in a way that's effective. But before we say goodbye to Mitch, got to talk a little MLS Week 1. Certainly want to get your thoughts on the Fire, Mitch, who did not start out strong with a loss to Houston, went up a goal, and then the second half undid them against the Dynamo. Let me ask you first, like, after last year, making the playoffs, right? However we want to frame making the playoffs in this current format and all that,
No,
as
it was a
number
beautiful
8.
thing, and don't you don't you diminish it. It was beautiful.
All
Stop
right.
it.
All right. Well, as a play-in team, what do we call it? Is it play-in? Is that what we
No, we
call
won
that?
the playing game. Okay,
I
we won
know
the
you
playing
won the
game.
play-in game, but Mitch, there is some legit question of whether or not that counts as winning a playoff game because
It did. It was too much fun not to. It was too. I'll put it this way: the tailgate, the party at the game, the friends along the way. It was too good not to
you
consider a
needed
playoff
it.
win.
I understand. You needed it. And look, I am one of these people, Mitch, who has been banging the drum that Chicago is one of the most underutilized, underexploited soccer markets in this country, right? Boston and Chicago. I can't believe I'm having you and Thomas Pinzone. Boston,
Well,
Chicago. And obviously, look, there are some things happening. Mansueto's going to put money. He's put money in the team already. He's going to build a stadium, apparently. There's stuff happening. I hope that all happens. I want to visit. I want to see that place. I want to be a guest to Mitch Clark when Chicago is playing in that incredible building, which on paper looks like it's going to be the best stadium and best looking stadium in Major League Soccer. Maybe I'll say that. But you want to put a winning.
I've been a little negative about it because, to be perfectly honest, the size of it, we already averaged that many in attendance, and it's like, you mean when the stadium opens, I can't get all my coworkers to come with me because we're already sold out? Like that. I understand. I'm in construction. I get that to put another layer of seats is a lot of extra zeros. I feel you, but that's my only complaint about it. You're right. It is beautiful. The guy is paying for it. Joe Mansueto's paying for it. That's the beautiful part about it. But
that's such a dickhead. That's such a dickhead thing to do. I don't want the stadium we've needed. Well, whatever. Okay, beggars and choosers or something, Mitch.
Yeah. Well, with the Bears leaving, man, with the Gary Bears, I say we stay at Soldier Field.
Well, that's interesting too. I have thought about that. Like, obviously, if the Bears leave, especially if they go to Indiana, how does that? What do you think, as a guy who's lived in Chicago for 15 plus years? What do you think that does for the Fire's potential reach just in the city with people who live potentially within, traveling distance of that new stadium? Because, the Bears are still going to eat up all the media attention, but they're going to be kind of out of sight, out of mind on some level.
It's going to be an amazing thing. Like, the one thing the Fire actually fixed the front office stuff. Like, they put on better events. They're more responsive with fans. They kind of fixed that stuff. Then they fixed the operation side of the team, and then they fixed the players, right? Because the guys own the team for 5-6 years at this point. Right now. I mean, I guess he did buy it right at the beginning of COVID, but still, so that is all very positive. Now, I know if we want to wrap back around real quick to the game, I hate to sound negative, but the only thing I have a big problem with about this team is Greg Berhalter's substitutions and just who and when. And if you noticed, immediately the very next play he did a sub, boom, next play they scored. Now, the second goal, Christopher Kups, he's 17. You really can't. The rest of the team should be playing better at that point in the game, so you can't really put that on him. But it's good to see the kids playing, but he's going to make mistakes and be culpable for goals, and it happens.
I mean, week 1, right? We shouldn't draw any grand conclusions. I actually think that Houston's going to be pretty decent this year. So I don't think that's a big black mark on the Fire so far.
Really? Because that's shocking. Because going in, they made 22 changes and on the roster, and Ben Olsen was in an interview, and they're like, "What do you think of this player?" And he's like, "I don't know. They just gave me what they gave me," and then they come out and beat the Fire, which, like I said, I was shocked that they looked as good as they did.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, again, I don't know that is going to determine your season, right? So the Fire lose week 1. If we talk about some bigger picture, and we talked about how hard it is to follow the entire league, especially if you are going out to games, and that was not your issue in week 1, Mitch. So when you think about the league so far, what stood out for you from week one? Like, what was the thing that really jumped out at you? Because, everybody's got their favorites, and it seemed, at least in the beginning, that most of them looked good, although two of them played each other. So there was that.
Well, I jokingly told, like, based on like all the teams I like and players I root for and stuff, it was like an Empire Strikes Back weekend for me. Everything went wrong. Like evil won. Like everything is terrible. I kind of like Miami. I like that to have a dominant team in the league, kind of force the rules to bend. I like that idea, and for them to get stomped the way they did, whoa. But Bouanga is always an exciting player. Like I even think more so than Son. I think Bouanga is the exciting part. And then the other thing is getting 6 minutes of Jordan Morris this season sucks.
Yeah. You were mentioning this. One of the things Mitch told me, like before we even got together to record tonight, was I'm a Jordan Morris guy. Now, he's not done. He's the reporting from my friend Jeremiah O'Shan at Sounded Heart says he'll miss a month.
Oh,
Mitch. Like
boy.
Yeah, this is a quad strain and something that will last a month. It's not like we lost Jordan Morris for the rest of the season. He is, though, a divisive character. So I want to pick at this a little bit, right? I've always liked Jordan Morris as a person who does his own thing, right? Who is not necessarily somebody who does what is always expected of him. Like obviously the whole dog thing and staying in MLS and Jermaine Jones and all that stuff is a story about him. He obviously went to England. Injury upended him there, right? So
what he got 3 or 4 games in, man. Ugh.
Yeah, rough. He though, and you brought up Kim McCauley post from social media that definitely does describe Jordan Morris in the way he plays sometimes. The most athletic refrigerator I've ever seen. He does not scream great soccer player. And yet he does kind of have this, I don't know, it's the effort levels he always puts in, right? He's always going. There's no like, oh, you didn't see enough from Jordan Morris tonight. He didn't really give it enough tonight. No, Jordan Morris, his effort levels are always at 11. It's whether or not the quality is there that is kind of the issue, and obviously whether he can stay healthy.
I mean, like, what's the old saying? Like Jordan Morris is closer to Messi than I am to Jordan Morris, right? So, but no, like, I think I think the mindset should be about this league is growing, like as a player where you're happy and comfortable. Like Jordan Morris is going to make a career out of being in Seattle, and I don't like. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt my feelings. He didn't go to Europe to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, look at Kellen Acosta still chasing the dream now in Poland at this age. It's like, was that really what you wanted? Why didn't you just go somewhere else here and be an MLS legend still? You know what I mean? And just, I don't know. It just, I'm very much a fan of people being happy with what they do. And I think there's a lot of people who are happy in Major League Soccer and could make a very long career making a lot of money and being very happy lifting trophies. That's
I mean, and I'm with you on this. I'm with you as somebody who likes Jordan Morris as a rule. And then, I as a my allegiances are very tentatively to DC United because I'm a DC area guy, but not necessarily like, why would I give myself over to DC United at any point in the last 15 years or whatever it's been? So I tend to be more like, what are the good stories? Now you talked about Miami pushing the envelope on spending and that being good, like push the rules. Somebody needs to be there to rock the boat to force a response that might actually benefit Major League Soccer down the road. So you and I are on the same page with that. And the Sounders, they have done the job of establishing themselves as consistently in the conversation. Like, when's the last time you thought, oh, this is a terrible Sounders team? They stink. They're not doing anything this year. Never happened.
I actually get a lot of stick because not just Jordan Morris. I am a closeted Seattle fan. Like I have been, like, you got to think they joined the league in 2010. The very year we stopped being good, or no, 2009. But like, the very year, right when we stopped being good. So I've been so jealous of them all the way up until like last season. You know what I mean? And they do it right. They have people like the Roldan brothers, Jordan Morris there that are like ties to the community that actually want to be there. they're not just on vacation. They want to be in Seattle to lift trophies in Seattle. And you love to see it. It's a good thing.
All right, Mitch Clark stepping in first half hour of tonight's episode. Mitch, thank you very much for coming by. We will definitely see more of Mitch. Don't worry. Shout out. Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Also, Seth, yes.
Anything responding to the chat. Anything you want to plug before I say goodbye?
I am a member of the Enemies of the Fire podcast. We are small and we are currently just on YouTube, but it's an inside joke. We're not haters. We enjoy the fire, and 3 of the 4 of us are season ticket holders.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you to Mitch Clark for stepping in. There goes Mitch. All right. When we shift here, just in one sec, I don't know why I'm not doing this very well. I think I was like going to go to a commercial break because my radio instincts kicked in. But no, what we're going to do is bring in Thomas Pinzone from Blazing Musket. Let me see if I can make that look better. There it is. Thomas.
Don't get too close. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we want to zoom in. Thomas, is that what you want? You want us to be like right there? Thomas Pinzone joining us for the second half of tonight's show. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be alive with all the snow that we've gotten recently. We have some members of the Blazing Musket that haven't seen a plow come down their street yet. So we lucked out. We got plowed out. We didn't lose power. So there's certainly a lot of people up here that are in much worse situations than I am. And the sun came out today. So
that sounds like a failure of local government. Get to the ballot box this November, Massachusetts. What are you doing? That seems to be the thing. I mean, I'm not want to talk about Massachusetts politics. We'd be here all night. Yes. Thomas is here. We're going to cover a couple things with Thomas. Obviously, we continue our Major League Soccer talk. Obviously, Thomas is going to come from a New England Revolution perspective. And I talked to one guy whose team lost on the weekend. We'll be talking to another guy whose team lost on the weekend. And maybe you can give us some context for what happened to the Revs against Nashville, Thomas. But I also want to talk, and it came up because somebody read the description on the show that I put up on YouTube. Don Garber replacement search. And Thomas, I imagine you might have seen the news that Major League Soccer has hired a search firm to look for Don Garber's potential replacement following the end of his contract, which currently is like the middle of 2007, as if it was a normal MLS year. But of course, with the calendar change, I suppose it's possible he could hang on and see out the 2027-2028 MLS season. He's the furniture. Like, he's been here for a very long time. What do you think MLS would look like without Don Garber in charge?
Well, I think it's for him personally. I think it's a good time to leave. He can leave just as the league switches to a new format. He can leave and say, hey, look, this is a healthy league with 30 teams. When I started here in 1999, it was I don't think anybody would have thought that 30 was even possible. They were having enough trouble sticking it at 10 for a little while.
He murked 2 teams. Don Garber did. He smothered them in the crib. Sorry, that's a terrible image, but he got rid of 2 teams.
So if you look at, and look, plenty of people, there's plenty to criticize MLS about, plenty to criticize him about. But again, where he's at now, he can step away just as this thing gets started and says, look, right, I helped grow this league to 30 teams. A lot of people didn't think that was going to be possible. I've really established MLS and established soccer in America. Maybe he hasn't done it in a way that has made everyone happy, but he's certainly, he has done that. And it would be tough to say otherwise. They're bringing in this new shift to, the fall, spring, which a lot of people think is going to be a great thing. So for him, hey, it's a good time to exit before we find out if this fall, spring switch actually turns out to be a really good idea. So he's done quite a bit. And I think it's, for him personally, it's a good time to make an exit and let somebody else step in. I think he's pushing 70 years old as well. So, I think we have enough old people kind of hanging on to positions of power, right. As it is.
Don't be a Mitch McConnell, Don. Don't be a Mitch McConnell. That's what we're saying. Now, Dom, the thing though is, again, it's the imagining MLS without Don Garber, and is for everybody who doesn't like Don or has an issue with Don. And look, I've had my issues with Don over the years, right? We obviously, I didn't love a lot of the way the thing went with Columbus and the Save the Crew thing. And look, some of that I think he was probably boxed in on, and you have to consider that he is an employee, right? He is a representative of the collective will of the MLS owners, and that is a very messy collective will, just like any group of people, especially those who have many of them billions, a lot of them hundreds of millions of dollars to back them up. They're not used to hearing no, right? They are used to making the decision. And when Don Garber says, well, I think we should do this, he has to convince a lot of people that are tough to convince. But it's a little bit of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And so, look, I've seen some short lists. Charles Altchek is on a short list. Ivan Gazidis is on a short list. Like, those are obvious sort of candidates. I don't think I could like guess who it is, or even say I think it should be so and so. Like, I don't know exactly who has the skill set and the resume to walk into this league at this point, Thomas, and be the right guy to steward Major League Soccer into whatever its next era is. When, as you said, there's 30 teams now, and most of these teams are in soccer-specific stadiums.
Yeah, well, look, I think the things that won't change is, people that want to pin 18 playoff teams, right? More than half the league makes the playoffs. You might be able to pin that on Don Garber now, but I think you find out very quickly that it's really not him. It's the owners. The owners are the ones that want that many teams in the playoffs. They're the ones that want a 34-game season. They're the ones that want the first round is 3 games, but then after that, it's a straight knockout, so that everybody gets a home game like that. You could pin that on Don Garber, but I think the reality is he's just, again, like you said, he's doing what the owners want him to do, which is find ways to take however much money we're currently making and just make that number bigger next year.
Yeah, right.
So whoever they find, look, there's a lot of very, very impressive corporate speak that I've seen just in the little bit that has been out about the search that they're going to go through and how they target, the right person for the moment. And you were talking about, second screen attention with their new betting partner, or sorry, not
what
betting.
Is it called? What is it called? What is it called?
Polymarket?
Prediction market? Prediction market.
Prediction market, yeah. Predicting the future by wagering money, but it's not a bet, right?
Do you think there was a prediction market line open on who Jason would have on as his new co-host in the Best Soccer Show? Probably not, right? Probably not enough of a market. Yeah, unfortunately. Go ahead.
But honestly, like, I think that's what it's going to come down to, right? All this corporate speak, whatever, it's all going to get washed away, and they're going to take the guy to lead them into the future that very simply says, y'all are making this much money right now. If you put me in here, it's going to go up by this much, and this is how I'm going to do it, and that's going to be the bottom line.
I think one thing that like soccer fans are going to worry about, right? And I talked about this. I think I talked about it on Morning Kick Around. The idea that Don Garber entered Major League Soccer's service as an NFL executive, right? That's where he made his bones in MLS, in NFL, in the NFL. And then they hired him for MLS, and it took a long time. And I know some people still kind of hold this against him. He's not really a soccer guy, Thomas. Like he doesn't really like soccer. He only cares about the bottom line for MLS and all that stuff, right? This idea that like not only are you the custodian of the business, you're a custodian of the game, right? You're supposed to be somebody who looks out for the best interest of the sport of soccer in America, maybe even if that cuts against what MLS might want to do to make money in the moment. And I think that lots of people are going to be afraid that the next guy up is not necessarily going to be a soccer guy, that they might even go back into the NFL ranks or woman. I think there's actually a woman on one of the short lists I saw, but she was, I think she was an MLS employee. So maybe that's wrong, but we don't know whether that person will be a soccer person the way that we as soccer people who are very precious about this seem to care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, it's like, look, every off season, right? I try and twist myself into knots and get into an optimistic state of mind in regards to the upcoming Rev season, right? And then reality comes upon me, right? I think this is very similar. Like, we can hope that, this guy is going to be a soccer person through and through, and all, this is all they've ever cared about since the day they were born. And, and the passion is there, and they want to do right by the fans and do right by the game. Like, that is great to dream about. But the problem is that when reality comes, that I don't see how it could possibly be that type of person. Like, if you look at what these leagues do, they all learn from each other. The NFL started playing games in Europe, and now you have European, leagues looking at, well, maybe we should start playing regular season games in America. They're all just kind of copying from one another, and I don't think it really matters what type of background this person has. Is it soccer background? Is it basketball? Is it football? Whatever it is.
The idea is that you, as a soccer fan, have to make peace with the way that sports business is right now. Like, and essentially, like, you have to make some peace with the idea that these leagues are in it for themselves and the bottom line that they can bring in, and that may not always align with sort of the good of the game. And maybe some fans don't care, Thomas, but some absolutely do care about that part of it.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I care about that type of stuff, and there's plenty of things that go on in the world of soccer, world in sports in general, that drive me crazy, and it's all about money, and it's, you have to have 87 streaming services to watch all the games that you want to watch. You got to fork out tons of money for tickets. You've got to fork out $200 to get a jersey, and they come out with new jerseys every 6 months to try and just kind of pull those strings of wanting to support your team just a little bit harder, get a little more money out of your pocket. But the reality is that if you really, really are going to put your foot down and say, you know what, I'm not going to follow any league that has anything to do with going out and trying to make money and line people's pockets, then then you can watch your local high school team. And I don't know that you could swallow the level of play.
Well, I'm sorry.
High school
probably your local high school team has a couple people involved with it who have questionable morals. So you're probably screwed there too, Thomas.
Do, right? So, what are you going to do? Are you going to watch, am I going to go down and watch the Grafton U8s to be able to get down to the level of the sport that has nothing to do with money?
The purest level of the game, where they bunch around the ball, where there's 6 players trying to kick the ball at the same time. That's the purest level of the game, Thomas.
It is. Well, ultimately, that's all any player really wants to do, right? I want the ball and I want to go and score.
Kick the ball.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see what happens with all of that. Again, Garber's not going anywhere right this second. It's going to be a little while before they find his replacement. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot when we get closer to it. I mean, again, Thomas, Revs guy, you talked about talking yourself up every year for the Revs, and then always reality sets in. That was certainly a dose of reality, although I know there are some extenuating circumstances for the Revs right now, Thomas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so first of all, Nashville is, in the second year of their, I don't like
the BJ era.
The BJ
just call it the BJ era.
Yeah. So, the BJ is for everyone. So it's
that's the spirit of the best soccer show, Thomas. I appreciate you. That was lovely. I enjoyed that. Yeah. In fact, you know what? Here we go. There you go. You mad at me for playing it for somebody else? He's going to be very jealous, but you get one, Thomas. There you go.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But no, look, they're in year 2. They look like a team that was in midseason form already. So a bit bad luck for the Revs to having to go and start off against a team like that. I'm sure a matchup with somebody like Montreal. They're always good for 3 points when the Revs play them, even when they're going through a tough time. But the reality is that everything that happened on Saturday that didn't go in the Revs' favor it's all fixable. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be fixed, but it is all fixable. Dor Turgeman came in to be a goal scorer that was going to lead the line, and he found himself playing right mid. And you could tell very clearly that is not something that he has done that often before. Defensively, it was a bit of a reality check. He struggled mightily on the defensive side. He didn't really make any contribution going forward. So really, really tough game for him. And I feel bad for him being stuck in that position. So hopefully we see that change. The center back pairing is not the center back pairing that we hope to see ever again. Andrew Farrell had a decent enough game. Keegan Hughes, I struggle to see how Keegan Hughes is an MLS level player. I know it's not nice, but that's the reality of watching him play on Saturday night. So look, you get center back pairing back, you get Turgeman playing where a lot of people think he should be playing. And I think things can potentially turn around very, very quickly.
All right. I mean, maybe there's some hope there. Obviously, lots of people are going to be watching the Revs for a couple reasons. One of them is Matt Turner in goal and getting consistent minutes going into the World Cup selection period. So I think that is one reason to keep an eye on what's happening in New England. I think also, like, in general, I've been high on Brooklyn Reigns, and I'm curious to see what that looks like, and just what Mitrovic, a guy who knows that pool better than anybody else maybe in the league, can do with a player like Brooklyn Reigns.
Yeah, no, look, I'm very excited about Brooklyn Reigns. I was kind of hoping that might bump somebody else out of the team. Matt Polster is getting on in the years and is not the player that he used to be. So I was really hoping that Reigns would come in, maybe alongside someone like Alhan Youssef, who looked pretty good at the tail end of 2024, had a bit of a rough time in 2025 when the bad man was coaching the team. So really hoping that he would bounce back, that Reigns would be able to step in. And I think he will ultimately. He does come across as a very good player in central midfield. And then Griffin Yao as well. Pretty excited about Griffin Yao. I remember watching him when he first broke through with DC United, which is already a long time ago now. But that was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, he was just breaking through with DC United. Really impressed by him all the way back then. So really hoping that he can come in and do well. Hoping the Brooklyn Reigns can do well. And then look, Matt Turner. Is Matt Turner the best goalkeeper in MLS? Probably not. Is he one of the top 5? He almost certainly is. And look, he's an excellent shot stopper. He's a good leader, and he really seems to love it here in New England. His trip over to Europe, I'm sure it didn't go as he hoped it would, but he is definitely someone that enjoys being relied upon, being in the spotlight, and he's going to have to be. I mean, even last week, look, they gave up 4 goals. He had a couple of great saves, and the Revs are going to, they're going to need prime Matt Turner week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that maybe he just needs regular BP and he'll be fine, right? He just needs to go and stroke a couple homers wherever he can. And he probably couldn't get that done in England. I don't think they have they don't have a lot of ballparks for him to go out there. No, I mean, I'm kidding. Obviously, he was a good ball player. And as a guy who was a baseball player myself, I appreciate that about Matt Turner. So wider MLS thoughts, and obviously you're going to be more focused on the Eastern Conference than the Western Conference, Thomas. I mean, part of that's some of us need to sleep, but there's the fact the Red Bulls impressed everybody. They're in a league with Lionel Messi. Obviously, they lost and got worked by LAFC, who looks very good, and people are talking about it. In a league with the Nashville team that beats your Revs, in a league where there are storylines across the board. The Red Bulls made a mark. Part of that's Michael Bradley getting his first job as a manager, right? That's a major part of it. He's an intriguing character that we all know his story. He's been in the spotlight in American soccer for a very long time, going back to when he was a teenager with the Red Bulls. But he rolled out a team full of teenagers, worked Orlando. Julian Hall is getting written up all over the place. I saw Zach Lowy wrote a piece on him in 442. What is your takeaway, either from the Red Bulls or in general, about the Eastern Conference?
Well, look, Michael Bradley coming out and playing 3 kids under the age of 18 in his first game was a bold move, and it's a type of move that if it doesn't go well, you get hit pretty hard for trying to do something like that.
He's on a free roll. You say he gets hit pretty hard. I think he's on a free roll for a couple reasons. One, this is kind of what the Red Bulls do, so they're kind of like, well, we're part of this big project, and we bring kids through, and remember Tyler Adams, like stuff like that. They can point to Edelman, they can point to or sorry, that's not the right name. Who am I thinking of in the midfield? Edelman, yeah,
he's gone now, but yeah,
well, Julian for a second, but I was like, that's not different Edelman. Because you're from New England, it's a whole thing, Thomas. Sorry, my brain is fried today. But anyway, Edelman, but they can point to a number of young players who have come through there, right? So it's part of their character. And look, to be honest, I don't think anybody's paying attention. Like, I just don't think that there's a lot of it. Like, it's New York, and yet nobody's really like pressing down on like, well, they got to win games this year. They got to fill up that stadium because that's number one, the state of MLS across the board in a lot of places. Number two, they just haven't found a way to connect with the marketplace of New York in a way that brings that kind of pressure that would normally happen. So Michael Bradley, this is a big time job, but it's kind of a soft opening for him as a manager in my mind.
Yeah, I'm sure. But look, this is the thing. When you go and do something that has never been done, right? So no team in MLS history had started 3 players under the age of 18 to open an MLS season.
Okay, so, right. So you and me and Matt Doyle would have been yelling about it if it didn't work. Or we would have said, great try, but it didn't work. Try something else.
Yeah, that's what it's right. Again, you put yourself out there. I don't know if he was aware of that step, but you go and do something that has never been done and it blows up. And let's say you lose that game, 3-0 or 4-0. That's a pretty tough start. And maybe some of the veteran players in the team. I mean, he dropped. I can't pronounce his name.
Choupo-Moting. Eric Choupo-Moting. Yeah,
he dropped him.
Yeah.
So you drop him, you lose that game.
And I will say that
that
there aren't a lot of managers in MLS. I could probably count the Bruce Arena, Tata Martino, that might be the list of guys who could like truly just kind of step up to that level and be like, all right, sorry, Eric, you're not starting. And it not be like Michael Bradley has the bearing to pull something like that off, where I'm not sure a lot of managers would when you're paying him when Eric Choupo-Moting is the biggest name in that. I mean, outside of Forsberg, he's the biggest name you got in that team.
Yeah, you're not going to find yourself in the hot seat by playing him, right? Like that's the safe. That like there's things you can do as a coach that well, if it doesn't work out, no one's really going to come down on me too hard. But when you drop a player like him in your first game, that is one of those things. I'm sure it was in the back of his mind. I mean, look, he was on the Apple TV, the Whip Around show, whatever it's called, half hour before the game, and he didn't seem too bothered about it. But that's a nice face to put on. But I'm sure in the back of his head, he knew, look, I need these guys to go out and perform, or I'm going to have questions being asked straight away. But look, the first half of that game was outstanding. I mean, that was an electric performance, and I mean, they ripped Orlando to pieces. And Orlando was fortunate they only scored 2 goals, so they were all over them. But that game ended 2-1, right? So it was an outstanding first half. Yes, they get a win. Yes, they went on the road and beat Orlando. So it's a good start. But I wouldn't get too carried away. And I'll be very interested to see, are they going to be able to come out and do that again against the Revs on Saturday? Yeah, are the Revs going to be able to fix some of the issues that they displayed on Saturday night? But you talk about the Western Conference. We do try and keep up with Bruce and the boys as best we can at 11:30 at night. They got off to a great start. 3-0 win. They don't have
bad sporting team. That's a bad sporting team. Come on, Thomas. You know this.
It is. But look, Espinosa's gone. On accident. Timo Werner hasn't come in.
Not yet.
Timo Werner's not in yet. So you go out and win 3-0 the first night of the season, and you don't have the guy that's supposed to come in and score a bunch of goals for you in with the team yet. I think that's a pretty decent. It's a decent start.
It is. I would say that I think the guy to watch in that team, if you are sort of just what you care about as young players, what you care about is whether or not Bruce can get the most out of players who haven't quite had that leap yet, is Nico Sekiris. Keep an eye on Nico Sekiris. That's the player that everybody talks about. And like, if only they gave him a full shot, if only they were really centering things around Nico Sekiris, what could happen? And if he's feeding Timo Werner, that could be very interesting to watch. I'm not guaranteeing anything about what the Quakes will be this season, but that's the guy to keep an eye on is because look, they win that game starting Preston Judd. And no offense to Preston Judd, but that's replacement level center forward in Major League Soccer. Like,
it's harsh on Preston Judd.
You think?
It's not the best name. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's
all right.
The first
maybe
time
he's a little bit better than that, I guess. Maybe I'm maybe I'm being too harsh on Preston Judd. But clearly Timo Werner is going to be an upgrade on that level of player for them.
Yeah, just a bit. No, I think what Judd is, he seems to find a way of popping up and getting some goals. But if you actually watch him play, he's not, he's not the most impressive player, I guess is the best way to put it.
What's his career high? I don't have it in front of me. I'm just asking, what do you think his career high in goals is? Preston Judd in MLS.
8, 9.
He scored 7 last year. It looks like
8 or 9, 7. It's all, it's all
okay. 7. I mean, okay. Look, again, I'm not whatever. We'll see. Eric is saying that Werner is shot. We shall find out, right? This is an interesting name to join. I don't know. Like, physically, I don't think he's shot. It's whether or not he shows up every week and puts the effort in. It didn't go well at Leipzig on his return. So, he did. He was at Tottenham when they won a trophy. So if you can win a trophy with Tottenham, I think you can make the playoffs in San Jose. So all right, that is fair enough. We don't always trade in rumor here on the Best Soccer Show. It's I have an axiom. I have a thing I say, which is a deal's not done until the player is holding up the jersey or in the stadium signing the deal. Like, it's not done until it's done. And yet there are some rumors swirling, and one of them involves the team that just got beaten by the young Red Bulls on opening weekend, and it's Antoine Griezmann to Orlando City. And Thomas, I would love to hear your perspective on what you think about that potential move, because I am a massive Griezmann fan, and yet I'm still not sold that this is a good idea for all parties.
I mean, it's it's tough anytime you see one of these moves in MLS, right? Where it's a guy that's in his mid-30s, that it's an instant name recognition, and it's still a matter of, okay, what do they have left in the tank? Are they going to come here, and how are they going to do? I think it's tough. I'm sure you could find, if you got 10 people, 5 people would say, "Oh, it's going to be a disaster," and then 5 people would say, "Oh, it's going to be brilliant," right? Like, Thomas Miller comes in the middle of last season. He spent, basically his whole life with Bayern Munich. Comes in, does a great job in Vancouver. I think it's easy to say now that worked out really well, but that could have been a little bit of risk at that time.
I will say to your point to bringing up Thomas Mueller. One thing I would say about Griezmann is he he isn't like this sort of effervescent, joyful guy that Mueller presents on the field. He definitely brings that sort of happy energy to the team, to the field when he plays. I would agree with that, which could be a benefit to Orlando.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you need someone that is going to come in and look, is going to be able to deliver on the field, but is also going to be, look, Miller looks happy to be wherever he is. I think you need that as well to get that buy-in, get the guys on board that, look, this guy isn't just coming here to take my playing time, or he's not just coming here for a final paycheck and an easy ride into retirement, right? You've got to really kind of go some distance with the players that you're playing with to convince them that you're still invigorated. You still want to win. You still want to succeed. So yeah, it's always interesting. Let me that way, right? When these types of guys come over at the stage, they come over. James Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is a bit more of an iffy one. Again,
Yeah.
the name recognition is there, but he might be well past his best days.
Yeah, there's lots from week 1 in Major League Soccer. I mean, but it's still very early. We can't cover the whole league. But so before Thomas goes, I saw a mention of Wilfred Nancy in the chat from Amar. Wilfred Nancy fired by Celtic. That's obviously like old news at this point. Eric Ramsey just got fired by West Brom after 44 days following his departure from Minnesota United for that job. I guess that happened technically after the new Minnesota United season started, so it's not like they both squeezed in a whole second tenure, a whole new tenure before an MLS season got underway. But Wilfred Nancy did that. And I guess, there is, it's one of those things that as an American soccer fan, as an MLS fan, it gets into this weird place where you feel like you've got to defend American soccer, even though really, I don't think that Wilfred Nancy at Celtic or Eric Ramsey at West Brom has a ton to do with American soccer. But of course, Celtic fans, Scottish football fans, and West Brom fans will immediately go to, oh, they couldn't hack it here because of MLS.
Yeah, of course they will, because it's the easiest thing to point at, right? It's the easiest thing to point and go, oh, hey, look, here we go again, right? Someone has come over here from America and tried to coach, and it turns out he can't do it. But the reality is that West Brom brought in Ryan Mason, and they didn't give him very much time, and they canned him as well. And that is, unfortunately, the way a lot of those leagues function. I know a lot of people really think Pro Rel is the greatest thing that has ever been created by mankind. But it does create these types of situations where you just get these trigger happy organizations that just, if you have a bad run of games, you get fired, and that's it. And some people like that. Some people are like, oh, it's cutthroat. But I personally, I don't see the value if I was a West Brom fan to be staring at the third coach in the same season.
I mean, Nottingham Forest. How many managers?
Exactly. So can you really harp too hard on either one of these guys for the situation that they were in? I mean, you look at Celtic. Look, there's plenty of coaches that have gone to Celtic and piled up a ton of trophies. While Rangers were down in the fourth, third, second division, right? I mean, it's pretty much automatic. You go there, and the minimum level of success is what is a treble. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's a baseline season for Celtic, and they're not having one of those types of seasons this year. And look, Nancy, maybe he could have made if you know that your way of playing is very particular, and it's a coaching intense thing that really takes time. Why would you come in the middle of a season to an absolute dumpster fire?
So this gets to the other side of the coin, right? So like we can say that, oh, Wilfred Nancy lasting as short as he did at Celtic, and Eric Ramsey lasting as short as he did at West Brom, partly because neither one of those guys' formative years in football were in the United States. Obviously, Nancy came from Canada, so you want to blame anyway. Blame Canada.
Blame Canada.
Yeah, blame Canada.
Sure.
But anyway, like whatever that is, while we can, that's true. Do you want to move to Canada with me, Thomas? I'm thinking about it. While we can. Anyway, my point is like whatever it is about American soccer that affected their ability to go, whatever. Both those guys at the drop of a hat, like the first opportunity that came to them, in both of them in kind of bad situations. Now, as you said, Celtic is sort of plug and play for a lot of play. I mean, Ronnie Dylan won things at Celtic and then came to MLS, also won an MLS Cup, and he got drummed out of Atlanta last year. So, things can turn.
What does that say about
quickly.
Celtic?
Celtic's a terrible place to manage. They don't prepare anybody for MLS. Clearly, Scottish football is a terrible place to go manage. Because anyway, I'm not even, why even bother with that? But my point is, Wilfred Nancy, maybe he thought he was selling himself at the high point. And maybe he thought Celtic, because of their history, was going to be relatively simple for him to step in, win some things, and parlay that into something bigger. Maybe in France, where he's from, or maybe in Europe somewhere else. I don't know. I don't really blame anybody for betting on themselves, but you do have to look at this and go, was that really the right move, Wilfred? Like, really, that club at that moment, were you really paying attention to the politics of Celtic at that point with everything that was going on? And certainly for Eric Ramsey, for a club that was already threatened by relegation, to walk in and go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to turn it, again, maybe you bet on yourself. And Eric Ramsey, he didn't come to MLS thinking, I'm going to be in America for the next 30 years. He came to MLS thinking, I'm going to go back to England. I'm going to go back to Britain. I'm going to get a job there, and I'm going to be a great manager somewhere where I'm from, not where I went. So, I don't know how much blame we put on Nancy or Ramsey for the choices they made.
Yeah, but look, there's a reason that Sam Allardyce and Neil Warnock got hired into these types of situations, time and time and time again, right? Neil Warnock, you ask him after the first game, hey, what'd you tell the players? I told them to go out and play, go out and have fun. You're all soccer players. You know what you're doing. Go out there and do it, right? Real simple stuff, right? Big Sam, same thing. Let's not overcomplicate it, right? Let's not do, I'm not going to ask you to do any ticky-tacky, right? Just go out and put the ball in the back of the net, stay tight on defense and hoof the ball at the field when you need to, right? So like those types of guys get those jobs for that reason. Or Igor Tudor is going to come in and get Tottenham from 17th to 12th. I mean, God, what a miserable existence. Miserable existence it is being a Tottenham fan, by the way.
I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm so sorry for your situation.
But these guys get those jobs for that reason. You're just going to come in, simplify, get 10 guys behind the ball, get us enough points on the counter to keep us.
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I mean, Eric Ramsey kind of set himself up to be that guy. Maybe he thought that was the career. It's sort of like getting a degree in engineering. You just know that that's the job that gets you the best pay when you get out of college, as opposed to being like, like a writer or a poet or an artist, or like, what's tougher to find work? But when I get recognized, it's gonna be amazing. Like, that's kind of the Wilfred Nancy approach to this. I think it is interesting, the different, the dichotomy of those approaches, because I don't think they could be farther apart. I mean, especially in MLS, but even you take them out of MLS, Wilfred Nancy, as you said, precious, particular, intricate for the most part. How are you going to apply it? And Wilfred Nancy, or Eric Ramsey rather, is like, lump the ball forward, throw the ball in the box, kick it as quickly as you can in front of the goalkeeper, and make a bunch of shit happen. Like, it's so wild. They both failed, and it both gets blamed on Major League Soccer.
Yeah, of course. And again, it's just, unfortunately, that's just how it goes. It's the easiest thing to point to, right? Bob Bradley, same thing. How many transfer windows did Bob Bradley get to turn things around in Swansea? Right? None. Didn't even get a transfer window. Didn't even get the opportunity to come in and identify, I can work with these guys. I can't work with these guys. Can you please try and get me, A, B, and C, right? Yeah. But again, and then they make fun of him. They made fun of, I can't think of his name now. They just love to
Jesse Marsh. They made fun of Jesse Marsh.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. And God forbid those guys say soccer out loud and and it gets recorded, right? It gets treated like they just declared war on England.
Yeah. Yeah, we're up against the hour. This has been a blast. Thank you to Mitch, and thank you to Tom. I was gonna mention, and I feel like I probably can't read the actual text message, but somebody I know shared some thoughts from the guy you just mentioned, Bob Bradley, about being the outsider, about being American in European football. Bob writes long text messages. That's all I'm gonna say. Very long text messages, like blocks of text from Bob, who has a perspective. I would love to talk to Bob about all that. That would be fascinating. Thomas Pinzone, obviously I gave Mitch the opportunity. I wanted to do this with you as well. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to point people to that you're a part of?
Yeah, look, absolutely. The Blazing Musket, of which I write very little for. I just do the podcast. You can check out our podcast. It comes out once a week. It's everywhere that you can get podcasts from. Just called the Blazing Musket Podcast. We do a monthly roundtable that is, it's a pretty enjoyable show with all the other guys that host podcasts on our podcast network. But honestly, if you want to keep up with all the amazing soccer that is going on in New England, whether it's Portland Hearts of Pine, Vermont Green, Rhode Island FC, even Hartford is making the playoffs these days. The Boston Legacy, NWSL is trying to come back into New England. If you want to keep up with that, please do check out all the excellent work that my colleagues do at theblazingmusket.com.
Yeah, that's absolutely 100%. I've seen a bunch of your colleagues from the Blazing Musket in the chat tonight, so that's incredible support from them.
Good bunch
And
of guys, yes.
Look, if this is an opportunity, like we're sad to see Jay Rodius step aside, but if this is an opportunity for the Best Soccer Show to become a place to highlight some of these independent outlets and these podcasts and these things that people are doing to cover American soccer, man, I'm 100% all for that, and I've had a blast. So thank you, Thomas, very much for coming by.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it.
There goes Thomas. I will finish out the show with just a couple of thoughts for you and an encouragement. Obviously, again, this is a new era for the Best Soccer Show. If you've been around for a while, you know, it's kind of always been me and the Rodius. When the Rodius stepped away the last time, we kind of paused the show. It became kind of tough for me to justify doing the show. And I don't love doing it without Jared. It's always going to be his show as much as mine. But I also think that there can be something worthwhile in bringing in new voices to the Best Soccer Show and having people join us. And I really appreciate Mitch, really appreciate Thomas. 100% I want to have both those guys back. 100% I want to bring them back on the Best Soccer Show. And I think what we want to do, I think what I wanted, I said we, is that like the royal we? I think what I want to do is maybe find a way to rotate some of these guys, bring them on, have them as regular featured hosts on the show. You know that JTT is always somewhere waiting in the wings, ready to step in and maybe be part of the Best Soccer Show. And I appreciate Jonathan Taylor Tannenwald as well for what he's been doing the last couple of weeks to help us out. There he is.
Where's that guy?
Is that JTT?
OMFPG-13, it's JTT!
Who? He'll always be my guy, and I'm sure he'll be back on the show in the near future. If you do want, and I'm going to let a cat out of the bag, which is, this is not 100%. So I'll acknowledge that I am maybe speaking a little bit out of turn. But if you want Rodius content, if you maybe want the Best Soccer Show in its purest form, which involves me and Jared back and forth and maybe a game, certainly soccer topics, but maybe some non-soccer topics as well, join the Patreon. That's all I'm not going to give you any details. I'm not going to promise anything. I'm just going to say, join the Patreon. Patreon.com/the Best Soccer Show is where you can go to do that. Not only do you get the, not only do you get potentially what I just described, and then now I'm feeling like I shouldn't mention again because I'll jinx it. You also get access to the Bestie Slack, which is a great community of people who are always talking about whatever is going on, not just soccer, but all kinds of things. There is a wrestling channel over there. Are you guys wrestling fans? I know of wrestling, and I'm not against wrestling as a rule. I just don't engage with it. But there's wrestling people over there. There's people who are trading like travel tips, game stuff. There are people talking about their fitness journeys. Is that what we do still? Do we do fitness journeys? I see Heath Pierce's name being mentioned a bunch of times. I guess I could reach out to Heath. I think Heath is pretty busy, but yeah. Need more West Coast content. Okay, Eric. I'm not against that. That is certainly something I'm willing to do. Obviously, Jared Dubois is a West Coast guy. It'd be nice to get some West Coast voices on here. So if I can find some people, and this remains not a casting call, but more like a, hey, join up with the Best Soccer Show call. Like my brain always goes to Voltron because I'm an 80s kid. If you want to join the Best Soccer Show Voltron, maybe you are part of a podcast like Mitch and Thomas, enemies of the fire. Is that what it was? Enemies of the fire, excuse me. And the Blazing Musket. Maybe if you've got a podcast, maybe if there's whatever people out there making stuff in American soccer, Like, this has long been a dream of mine to be a place where, or to have a place, not to be a place, but to have a place where I can help spread those voices out and get them more attention. And, the Best Soccer Show, I think, still has a very dedicated and committed audience. And those are synonyms. So I said the same thing twice, but a very dedicated audience. I know a lot of you have been with us for a very long time, and I appreciate all of you. So, all right, one more call. Patreon.com/The Best Soccer Show. If you want to get access to the Bestie Slack, bonus content, which I intend to increase regardless of Jay Rhodey's involvement. Also, potentially some extra stuff from him that may not live out in public, but could live on the Patreon. I don't know. Again, this is all sort of subject to the whims of scheduling and that kind of thing. I will also plug Morning Kick Around, which is my Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning show on YouTube, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be doing an episode tomorrow if you're listening to this live. 9:30 a.m. on a Friday, Morning Kick Around on YouTube. Go find that. We are covering a lot about lower division soccer, the growth of the game from the USL up, maybe even below that. I think we've talked Midwest Premier League. We've done some NPSL content, League for Clubs as well. So if you are interested, look, MLS is the glitzy glamour place for American soccer domestically, right? They got the big stadiums. They're signing players like James Rodriguez and Thomas Muller and Son and all. That's MLS. We know what MLS is, right? And some people are absolutely in on MLS. I'm an MLS fan. I love the league. But there is something to be said, and certainly a place for growth that is well below Major League Soccer. And this is also, a sort of warts and all look at American soccer at the lower levels over on Morning Kick Around. We're not just talking about sort of, it's all great how they're doing pro rel in USL now. We're going to examine it, right? We're going to be fair about it. We just had a club shut down for 2026, a couple weeks ahead of the USL League One season down in Georgia. So if you are interested in stories like that and sort of the good and bad of lower league soccer, get out there. Like, go check that out. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. We got some plans. We're going to Rhode Island. I should have mentioned this, Thomas. I think he probably knows. I'm going to Rhode Island in May to do a live show at Centerville Bank Stadium in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, home of Rhode Island FC. I'm going to be touring the Blackstone Valley of Rhode Island. I guess that actually trickles into Massachusetts, which is just north of that. If you guys have ever heard of Fall River Marksmen and those kind of clubs from the industrial era of American soccer, lots of those clubs are from that part of the country. Very excited to be part of that. So we're getting that together to go on the road to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, coming up in May. There's probably going to be some World Cup stuff as well. So check out Morning Kick Around over on YouTube. Tell your friends. That's the best way to help out the show. All right, I think I've hit my limit. I think that's it. Thank you very much to Mitch Clark. Thank you very much to Thomas Pinzone. You will be seeing both of them at some point in the near future. I promise you that. And with that, I say goodbye and good night and have a great one. Bye.
The best.
Only the best. Get to the chopper! WNBC. WNBC.
Damn, dog, that's in a boat.
What's that for? Here we go. Saucing them up. Hit them. Wet.
Oh, it's incredible!
Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Danger zone!
Who asked those questions?
Get to the chopper! The horror show.
Jay Rodius.